in Hapeville. Number 1 is the Northwoods Association. Lee Duke, are you here? Lee Duke. Virginia Park is Katrina Bradbury. Katrina. Cofield Park is Jan Bolin, and she may be outside at the lobby. Number 4 is Moreland Park, Lavoria Green. And number 5 is Central Park with Scott Vanderbeck. I know Scott's here. A little housekeeping. The restrooms, for those of you who haven't been here before, are out to the exit to the right, my right, and then keep going to the right. As a courtesy to those present and to the neighbors, please put those cell phones, if you would, on silent or turn them off. And if you would, please hold your applause for anyone till the end of the session. And as published, our event this evening is conducted by the League of Women Voters Atlanta Fulton Chapter. And at this time, I'd like to introduce the moderator for our event for this evening. Her name is Janet Prelew. She's a member of the League of Women Voters in the Atlanta Fulton Chapter. She's served on the League as a director and committee member for membership and programs. Janet is also a member of the Women in Leadership Committee for the Commerce Club. She's an interior designer and the owner of Janet Prelew Interiors. Janet is also an adjunct instructor of interior design at Georgia Piedmont College. So without further hesitation, I introduce Janet Prelew.
Thank you, Terry, for that warm welcome. Can everyone hear me? Great. I am excited to be here. As a member of the League of Women Voters Atlanta Fulton Chapter, whenever we have the opportunity to come out into the community and be a part of your debates or community forums, we are excited because this is a part of what we do. We're about political awareness, voter registration, member voters, and just educating the everyday citizen about the political process. So thank you for asking us to come. I would like to thank the Azalea Park Neighborhood Association, which is the lead association for this event, and I would also like to recognize the support of the Northside Neighborhood Association. Would you please stand? All of the presidents, would you please stand of the associations? Thank you for your continued contribution and what you do for your community, making it a safer place to live, work, and play. Thank you. Are there any elected officials in the House? No elected officials? Okay, but we have quite a few on stage. Thank you, sir. The forum will be divided into 2 parts. The first part will be the introduction of the candidates, the political office that they're running for, and there will be a very important question that the moderator will ask of each candidate. It is very, very important, audience, that you listen very carefully and with a critical ear, because they are going to give you their vision and the implementation of that vision for the community that you will be living in. So listen very closely. The second part of this forum will be the question and answer. Some of you have written questions that you would like to have answered by the candidates on this stage. So that will be the second part. Our official timer for this forum is Ms. Karen Bearden. Would you please stand? She is also a member of the League of Women Voters. Let's meet the candidates. Rod Mack, seeking the office of Alderman. Alan Hallman, Mayor Incumbent, seeking re-election. Laura Murphy, seeking the office of Mayor. Ruth Barr, seeking the office of Alderman. And Ms. Lucy Dolan, seeking the office of Alderman. Ellen Randman is in absentia. Is Ms. Ann Ray present in the house today? Is she present in the building? Ms. Ann Ray? Ms. Ann Ray is the incumbent alderman. Due to health issues, she will not be seeking re-election, but we would like to thank her for the contributions that she has made in the office that she holds, and we wish her well and Godspeed in her recovery. Each candidate has a vision, a hope, and a desire, and a great mission for their community. I will ask each candidate this very important question. They will have 5 minutes to answer this question. Mr. Rod Mack, what is your vision for the city of Hapeville? And explain your implementation plan.
My vision for the city of Hapeville, do we stand?
No, you can stay seated.
Oh,
You may
my
stay
vision
seated.
for the city of Hapeville is to have a operating budget, capital thresholds, debt reduction, revenue, auditing, and a vision of inclusion for this city for everyone who resides here and everyone who would like to become part of our community to help further, to turn this into a world-class city.
Thank you. Mr. Alan Hallman, incumbent mayor, what is your vision for the city of Hapeville, and explain your implementation plan?
Well, my vision has been part of a collective vision over the last 18 years that I've been in office. When I first came in office, the Central Park subdivision was under construction. It was the first new construction that the city had seen in decades for residential housing. As part of that team, that came from a vision of the then council. That was a major changing point for the city of Hapeville when Central Park was developed. Then I came in office in 1998. Shortly thereafter, we secured 50 lots or so from Delta Airlines. Delta Airlines had been acquiring property in the Virginia Park area, and they had intentions of building their headquarters at that location. Because of the change in the economy and when Delta filed bankruptcy, they were going to donate the 50 lots to the Habitat for Humanity. The city of Hapeville negotiated a deal with Delta to acquire that property through our development authority. And again, as part of a collective vision, we were able to do that. The redevelopment that took place in that area completely and totally transformed that area. However, visions must change. For example, in 2006, we lost the Ford plant. We lost our single largest employer, our single largest water user, and our second largest employer, single largest taxpayer, single largest water user, all in one fell swoop. We were excited, though, when Jacoby Development bought that site because they promised us a mixed-use development that was going to really help us replace the revenue that we lost when we lost Ford. Once again, the economy came along, the Great Recession came, and that deal never happened. So with that, Porsche Cars North America shows up and builds their headquarters. Unfortunately, they built it on the Atlanta side of the property. So my vision right now is, again, as part of a collective vision because you have to work in concert with your council. But my collective vision is to capitalize on Porsche's presence here, capitalize on our arts destination, and capitalize on the other great things that we've done over the years and build on that. It's now time to take advantage of their presence here because for once with Porsche being here, Hapeville is a destination. There's been no reason for people to do anything other than come through Hapeville, going to the airport, going to Florida, coming to eat at the original Dwarf House. But for once with them here, we have the opportunity for people to come that are going to enjoy the customer experience track. They have 40, 50 people a week, 48 weeks out of the year coming in for training. And I think we can capitalize on that, and we can have development that will capitalize on that will help increase our tax base. So part of the most important thing for me at this point, as far as my vision goes, is to keep doing a lot of things we've been doing because Hapeville's come a long way.
Ms. Laura Murphy, candidate for mayor, what is your vision for the city of Hapeville, and explain your implementation plan?
Thank you. To the Village Church, the Neighborhood Association, and the League of Women Voters, A gracious thank you for hosting and moderating our candidate forum.
Thank you.
That said, I'm Laura Murphy, and I'm running for mayor. Now, why would I do that? Well, because I'm passionate about Hapeville. I have a passion for this town since I landed here in 1993. It's hard to explain, but I'm very passionate, and I'm excited about our future. So what is my vision? Quality of life. And the word quality is what I'm shooting for. Small town charm that's charming. A place where you can raise a family, feel safe and connected. Good place to make a living, to support the family that you're raising. I want everybody to enjoy the amenities, to go to restaurants, the theater, have recreation, and have a worship place that you can go to. I believe we all want these things. So, how do we get that? First things first, let's talk about the budget. Okay? You got to have money. So if the buck is going to stop here, I need to know where the buck starts. In the first 90 days, I will call for a forensic audit. I will work with council, the city manager, and department heads to define our fixed costs and our variables. In the next 90 days, we will be into the third quarter of our fiscal year. This is a great time for us to start a zero-based budget system. So as the water and sewer people would put it, we will put a pressure gauge on the line and figure out where the leaks are. I will work with Fulton County on our tax digest to correct zoning and property assessments. We will no longer be the city with the highest millage rate. To me, that's unacceptable. I want community development department. I want a one-stop shop where every applicant would be assigned one person to work with from beginning to end. I don't want any surprises or to hear that, oh, we didn't tell you that. We need checks and balances. I would encourage each council member to work with the department head and sign off on all invoices to be paid, thus educating our council members and our department heads on exactly what we're spending our money on. I want SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, rewarding, and in a timely fashion. I want goals and objectives, not goals and objections. Talk about open government. We want an open government, and anyone that has ever requested an open records knows our system is broken. Our system is unacceptable. There is no reason in this information age that the records cannot be readily available at a reasonable cost. If we don't have a system where you can electronically access this information, we need to get one. Last, I'd like to form a citizens advisory board to include neighborhood associations, talented and dedicated people to help reach our goals. Every person here, I believe, shares the vision for a better Hapeville. Having served previously, the 8 years on council, I bring experience, so that eliminates a learning curve. My special talent is networking. I connect people to people and organizations to the goals. I make things happen. So vote on November 3rd, Laura Murphy, your next mayor.
Seeking the office of Alderman, Ms. Ruth Barr, what is your vision for the city of Hapeville, and explain your implementation plan?
Well, I also thank everyone for coming out tonight, because I think it's important for citizens to be able to be informed and so they can make informed decisions. As stated before, my name is Ruth Barr, and I'm a candidate for Alderman in the city of Hapeville. I have lived in Hapeville since I was 1 and have run a family business here for the past 40 years, so I understand what it is to do business in a town. As a lifelong resident of Hapeville, I know the potential of the city. I will propose that benchmarks be set for each department. We no longer need to do things just one way, just because they've always been done like that. The city needs defined and obtainable goals so that all employees and citizens know what we are striving for and can follow our progress. I wish to get Hapeville on a more solid financial ground. I intend to accomplish this by making sure that we are collecting every dollar we are due and by making sure that every dollar we spend is necessary. In this area of finance, our commercial property digest has remained fairly steady. The decline has been in residential taxes. This will be somewhat self-correcting as the values of real estate property rise after our downfall since 2008. The city must keep a close eye on their digest and make sure that the county correctly evaluates property worth. We need to use a two-pronged approach by making sure property is reevaluated on a regular basis and by encouraging new residential and commercial building. The finance department needs to have realistic and attainable goals to be properly evaluated. Hapeville's fire rating has risen over the past few years. The continuing rise in this number and employee retention would be the goals which should be set for the fire department. On the whole, I believe that our police department has done a good job of keeping crime at bay. No community will ever be crime-free, and Hapeville is no exception. The benchmarks by which the police department should be judged is officer turnover and increased patrols. Each of these would assist the department in keeping our crime rate low. With improved officer retention, we will benefit by having officers that are familiar with the area and will recognize when something is out of place. This will also keep our training costs down. Code enforcement is always front and center, simply because everyone has access to their failures. When the same properties remain in disrepair over long periods of time, it gives the impression that code enforcement is not doing their job. I would request a comprehensive list of all properties which have had code violations for some time. After compiling this list of properties, code enforcement would have to regularly report on what actions have been taken to correct these situations. Cross-training is an important duty in small communities. As many employees as possible should be cross-trained in our administration and finance department. This, hopefully, would reduce the need for temporary employees and improve the efficiency of these departments. This function could be carried out without any additional expenditures. Hapeville is a true gem of the South Side. Between our access to transportation and our location, there is no reason that Hapeville could not continue to grow. The best feature of Hapeville is its fantastic location, between 3 interstates and just north of the airport. Our location is why Porsche decided to locate here. We should use this location, their relocation, to assist in spurring our future development. The one area that needs much of our attention is the promotion of our town. We need to do everything we can to attract good quality developments to town. We also need to work, as Laura also stated, on making it simpler to locate in town. Being a business owner, and I've helped other businesses in Hapeville, I know how hard sometimes it is to get through the system. And we need to have a system that's welcoming us and helping us all the way. Again, thank everyone for coming out, and I hope I can count on your vote November 3rd.
Lucy Dolan, candidate for the position of alderman. What is your vision for the city of Hapeville, and explain your implementation plan?
Thank you very much. I want to thank the League of Women Voters and also all of the associations that made this possible. I really appreciate it. My vision for the future of Hapeville is to work with our mayor and council, our city employees, and our citizens to move to a customer service-oriented, open city government. My guiding principle is this: if it matters to someone, it matters. We need to modernize our codes and then have strict enforcement of them. I'm tired of hearing of repeated noise violations. I believe Hapeville needs to commit to being a residential community first and foremost. I want our residential neighborhoods intact, vibrant, and protected. Downtown improvements are constantly being made. What seems lacking to me is a commitment to excellence. When I see poorly implemented projects such as the new walkway ruining a fire hydrant, when new sidewalks are pouring water into buildings, and when business activity is interrupted, I'm concerned. This is not the expectation I have of a first-class city at work. I have a different vision. Our community is too small to have the number of slum landlords and unsightly properties that we have. Current code enforcement is just too slow. This is hurting appraised values of our properties. Taking advantage of the poor, uneducated, and struggling is a big business here. I don't want our city known as a paradise for slumlords. There are federal programs to help the poor who will always be with us and who deserve a dignified place in our city. We need housing quality standards that are monitored and enforced. I grew up here. I own the home my brothers and I grew up in. It has taken over 100 years of labor by my father, my mother, and by me to buy it, maintain it, pay taxes on it, and bring it up to code as much as possible. I love this town, and I'm invested in its future. I feel at home here because I have meaningful relationships with many of the residents, and I admire and respect the city employees. I want the city to flourish for all of us. I'm also a pragmatic realist. I call a spade a spade. I know there are drug problems, prostitution problems, unemployment problems, and poverty here. None of these problems can cancel out the positives of Hapeville, at least in my mind. We have a great location, convenient for workers. We have neighborhood associations, service organizations, Clean and Beautiful Commission. We have our churches, our schools. We are a city of joiners. Hapeville is rich in social capital, the social relationships and the shared values that enable people to cooperate on a vast array of actions that move the city forward. I love that about Hapeville. The implementation. On day one, I'm going to begin to work with city employees on job descriptions that accurately reflect their day-to-day tasks. I will ask for a commitment to excellence, one small step at a time. I'll bring our financial department in line with the recommendations of our auditors. Our codes need to be modernized quickly, and we need to get the word out to all the cities around us that we are changing the way we look at ourselves. We are on the move, we're building on our past successes, and we are happy to be on the journey. I need every person here to remain involved if you are, to consider becoming involved if you're not, and to vote for me, because I want more than anything else to represent you. I have the ability to do the job, and I want it. Thank you very much. Vote for Lucy.
Thank you, candidates. Let's give them a rousing applause. Thank you. Thank you, candidates, and may the best one be elected. I see that everyone has a passion for the city that you live in, and this is good to know. This is great to know. We are now going into phase 2 of our forum, the question and answers. Each candidate will answer the questions, and we will get this started. The first question of the evening is, drum roll. Hey, I'm just trying to be a little funny up here. Mr. Rod Mack, the city has a critical budget shortage. What will you do to rebuild the city finances?
Well, thank you for that question. I propose to establish a fund balance immediately, reserved for the general fund to pay expenditures caused by unforeseen emergencies, to cover shortfalls caused by revenue declines, and to eliminate any short-term borrowing for cash flow purposes. This reserve will be maintained at an X amount that represents approximately X number of dollars, or 2 months of regular general fund operating expenses, or whichever is greater.
Thank you. Mayor Alan Hallman, what would be your response to the critical budget shortage, and what will you do to rebuild the city finances?
Thank you for the question.
Yes.
We're already in the process of rebuilding our revenue streams. We recently negotiated a contract with East Point to purchase some water from them, and the savings that we will enjoy in that capacity will save us somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 a month. We are also studying our capacity issues with the City of Atlanta to reduce the capacity that we pay for sewage treatment. We are working currently on a cell tower audit, and we're in the process of renegotiating our cellular tower lease with Crown Castle in Central Park, and we are hopeful to increase revenue there. We are working with Delta Airlines on their planes that have been parked on the Loop Road. They've moved some equipment around, and we're going to be able to gain tax on that. We are working on with basically what I will call low-hanging fruit with Fulton County right now, trying to get a response from the tax assessor's office to properly value parcels that we know are valued incorrect. It's very hard to get them to move down there, but we're working on that. We're turning over every rock, and I want to remind everybody that
Mayor Allen Hallman, you have run out of time. Ms. Laura Murphy, the city has a critical budget shortage. What will you do to rebuild the city finances?
Well, like I said in my 5-minute speech, the first thing I would do would be a forensic audit. That way we can get into the crux of exactly what's going on, find out where our money is going. I would like to address the local option sales tax. We negotiate that about every 10 years, and in that, I don't think they take into consideration that we employ about 60,000 people in the area, so they are using our roads, they're using our amenities, they're using everything, and we're just not getting our fair share. So I think we need to address that. The next thing I think we need to do is make sure that Fulton County understands exactly our housing stock. We were basically redlined. They didn't really want all those people coming to say that their taxes were too high, so they just dropped it down low. We need to make sure that we keep a handle on what Fulton County is doing and that they get the proper information. Thank you.
Ms. Ruth Barr, the city has a critical budget shortage. What will you do to rebuild the city finances?
Well, as Mayor Hallman said, that came back when Ford left, and it's just we had a large reserve back then, and it has since disappeared. We've as of yet not had to take any loans out to keep us going, which is a very good thing, and I think that's an important thing to keep on. As Ms. Murphy said, I think the key is to get our digest up to where it should be, and if we do that, and we encourage commercial development, because the real money is in commercial. The houses don't pay, their taxes don't pay for their services. You need commercial investment in your city in order to up your digest, and that is where the focus should be.
Ms. Lucy Dolan, the city has a critical budget shortage. What will you do to rebuild the city finances?
I would not be concerned about anything at this time. I don't consider this problem unsolvable. I do believe we need a forensic audit, and I would hope that would happen quickly. We also need to listen to the advice of the people that we pay to audit our books. We need more people doing our finances, and we need an open records approach to that as well. I think it's been said we have to look for every dollar that's out there, and I believe there are a lot of dollars out there that we haven't found yet. I'm convinced if we have an aggressive approach to that, we're going to find the kind of money that we need. And we also need commercial development. I think that's a given. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. You need to stay close by to me. The next question that we have is, beginning with Mayor Allen Hallman, if elected, what will be your primary objective in improving the housing market and neighborhood for new growth? Mayor Allen Hallman.
well, we certainly know that we need some new housing stock. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, when we got the Virginia Park redevelopment and when we got the Central Park development, we did a lot to turn around the housing here. One of the big challenges that we're up against right now is the amount of rental property that we do have. That's been mentioned before. We have over 50% rental property. And we're looking at creating a tax on blighted properties to help us with the abatement funds that we need to take care of these distressed properties. And that would be one thing that I think would raise the bar. We need to get the owners of these properties invested in improving them.
Thank you. Ms. Laura Murphy.
Thank you. I believe that we need to have our density in the area that we refer to as Asbury Park. Back in 2005, we did an LCI study to protect the neighborhoods that are in place. We don't want those disturbed. We love our neighborhoods. But we do need at least 10,000 residents to help sustain the quality of life that we would like to have. So if we have infill, we would like to match our neighborhoods. That's one of the things. So one thing we need is density. Density will help us all the way around. And we'll work with the developers on getting it here.
Ms. Ruth Barr?
I also agree. I think the most important thing is to maintain the neighborhoods you have and make sure the properties in those neighborhoods are well maintained. And streamlining the process will help make it easier for people who want to come in and develop some new residential. And I also agree in areas that already have a high density, that's an area that we can look at also encouraging more density in those areas. I don't want to disturb our single-family neighborhoods, but code enforcement, which is one of my biggest things, that and doing something about the blighted property will automatically improve our housing stock.
And Ms. Lucy Dolan?
As I mentioned in my opening 5-minute statement, I am very, very much interested in getting rid of blighted housing, doing anything we can to make slumlords pay for what they're doing and to upgrade their property. I do believe commercial attraction to this city is possible in greater leaps and bounds than we've seen it because of our location. And I also think the Aerotropolis initiative is going to have a lot to do with that, with bringing more businesses here. The area that's open for development, thank you for Asbury Park, is also a great place for density, and that's where I would like to see it. Thank you.
Beginning with Ms. Laura Murphy. If you are elected, I'm sorry.
Mr. Mack did not get that.
Forgive me. I'm sorry, Mr. Mack.
I also would welcome new and residential development here. It broke my heart last week when about 3 blocks from here, I visited a property down on Dogwood, right behind the senior citizens home, and a woman invited me into her home, and it looked like a third world country. It broke my heart. I don't want to see anything like that in Hapeville. The slumlords will be my #1 target to either upgrade these properties or move away.
Okay, Ms. Laura Murphy. If you are elected, would there be any conflict of interest that would cause you to recuse yourself from various votes that may come up?
Only if somebody wanted to build a big project on my property. Whatever came up, I'm sure that we would take into consideration, recusal. I certainly wouldn't want anyone to think that I would be doing something underhanded. So, of course, I'd look at anything.
Okay. Ms. Ruth Barr?
I would look at it on a per-case basis, but the business I have is an accounting business. It doesn't come into an awful lot of conflict with the City of Hapeville.
Ms. Lucy Dolan?
Thank you. I'm a retired educator. I don't see that I'll have any conflicts, but should I ever have one, I would recuse myself.
Mr. Rod Mack?
Well, I've been here 6 years, and I'm becoming to find out that a lot of people in this room, they know each other. So I don't have any ties to anybody. I've been here 6 years. I'm enjoying every minute, and I don't think I have that problem.
And Mr. Allen Hallman?
Typically, as mayor, there's not a vote cast by me unless there's a tie. But in the rare cases when someone's coming before me that may be a client of mine, I make sure to disclose that, so any appearance of impropriety will be removed.
Next question, Ms. Ruth Barr. If elected, will you be committed to respond to all issues with the city's best interests?
Well, absolutely. From the day I came to Hapeville, the first thing I think about is what's best for the city. I served on the council for 8 years, and there were many times I'd go home and have a fight with my husband because he didn't like the stance I was taking at the city, because it would be something I thought was better for the city, and he didn't think it was very good for his business. So I've loved the city. I've loved the city for a very long time, and I would never do anything to hurt it.
Ms. Lucy Dolan?
I feel the same way. I don't have any, I can't think of any reason that I would not want to put the best efforts of the City of Hapeville above anything that I could think of. Thank you.
Mr. Rod Mack?
No, I wouldn't do anything to put the city in any type of jeopardy or by my being involved with someone who I had ties with politically or otherwise. And I hope that nobody approaches me for anything like that either. Thank you.
Mr. Allen Hallman?
Well, I've always tried to do the right thing for Hapeville, and I know some people have agreed with some of the decisions I've made and some people haven't, but my heart always belongs to Hapeville. I've been here all my 53 years, and I live this community with a passion that we all share. And I've always done everything. I live by a simple philosophy. If you do the right thing and you don't worry about who gets credit for it, we can accomplish a lot of great things by working together as a team.
And Mr. Laura Murphy?
I definitely have a passion for Hapeville. I have renovated many dilapidated buildings, and if you know me, you know that I love to redo things. So I would always put the city first and hope that the things that are available for the citizens would be something that would be special. We want amenities, we want things like that. I believe that's why when I was on council, we limited the pawn shops to one. We had 3 at the time, and as they closed, we slowly got that down. So those are the things that I think we could do.
Ms. Lucy Dolan, where do you live, and do you rent or purchase your home?
I live on Parkview Place, and my family has owned the home since 1957. I've owned it since 2003.
Mr. Mack?
I live right here on King Honor, right behind you, right there. And I live right down the street. I've been here 6 years, and I've enjoyed every minute, meeting the council people and going to council meetings and discussing the issues that needs to be addressed.
Mr. Allen Hallman?
I live at 215 Victoria Lane, and I've owned that home for a little over 10 years.
Ms. Laura Murphy?
I live at 201 Colorado Avenue. I'm on my 4th house in Hapeville. And in Hapeville, you never leave, you just move to a different street.
And Ms. Ruth Barr?
I just recently moved to 2128 La Vista Circle, and I am purchasing that house. I moved there because I've taken care of my father, and it has no steps, and I moved from a house that did have steps. I probably have lived in more properties in Hapeville than anybody else here because this is the 10th place I've lived in Hapeville.
Mr. Mack? I see people continually walking down the middle of our residential streets, some actually pushing baby carriages and people in wheelchairs. Is this not a violation of jaywalking statutes when there are sidewalks available? Do you see this as a problem, and what will you do about it?
I think that's a little petty to harass someone with a baby carriage walking down the street. That sounds very petty to me. And if we have sidewalks, you can walk on the sidewalk. And I just don't believe that we would be trying to enforce an ordinance or a law to make somebody walk on the sidewalk. To me, that's ridiculous.
Mr. Allen Hallman?
Well, if there's a safety issue and you feel like that a child is at jeopardy or someone's at jeopardy in a wheelchair, please call the police and they'll come and try to help them out. But I tend to agree with Mr. Mack. Sidewalks are available. We encourage people to walk on sidewalks, but it is a free country and people walk in the streets all over the place. I mean, I certainly understand that it can be annoying sometimes, but I think when it comes to crime, we have bigger things to worry about than where somebody's walking on the street.
Ms. Laura Murphy?
As far as our sidewalks go, I would like to get the telephone poles out of the middle of them so they can walk on them. We need to make sure that we have handicapped accessibility throughout our city. We have quite a few areas where strollers can't even go. Right next to our elementary school, it's amazing. they have to go out in the street in order to get around and then come back up. So first and foremost, I think we need to look into those, handicapped accessible.
Ms. Ruth Barr?
Well, I think they should write on the sidewalks also when they're available. I actually just called the police over something similar because someone was just standing in the middle of the street, and he'd wait till you get right up at him before he would move, and then as soon as you passed him, he would get back. I did call the police and report that. But as long as they're not in the middle of the street and they're doing it safely, because a lot of times the sidewalks are not safe because they're unlevel and they're difficult to walk on. But it's not one of the biggest concerns I would have.
Ms. Lucy Dolan?
Thank you. I'm concerned about people walking in the street. I think generally speaking, most people don't want to walk in the street. We have some serious sidewalk issues here. We also have serious handicapped accessible issues, and we have serious issues for mothers pushing children in strollers and having others in their hand because they've got a group of children. I think this is a very serious issue, and I think it's one that the city needs to address. I'm particularly sensitive to it because of my street. I see people walking in the street all the time where the sidewalks end. So please, 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 let's have a walkable community. Let's have places for people to walk on sidewalks. Let's get rid of the poles, and let's build some more good sidewalks. Thank you.
Mr. Alan Hallman, is there a loitering statute on the books for the city? Do you feel that it's working? What will you do to see that it is enforced?
Could you repeat the first part of that? I think you said noise statute?
A loitering. Yeah, is there a loitering statute on the books for the city? Do you feel that it is working? What will you do to see that it's enforced?
Well, I think loitering is there definitely is an ordinance on the books for loitering. But one of the things I've noticed is a lot has to do with how a business owner controls their property. One particular convenience store that I go to, the man has a zero tolerance policy for loitering. So he does not allow panhandling in his parking lot. He does not allow loitering. And if that situation does occur and you witness it, once again, please feel free to call the police department and they will come enforce it because there are laws on the books that govern that. And if you ever feel threatened by a crowd or you see a crowd where you don't feel that they should be assembled, pick up the phone and call someone. All too often we find out about this in the rearview mirror when we could have dealt with it as it was happening if we would just take the time. No call to our police department is too small to make.
Ms. Laura Murphy?
As far as loitering goes, I believe the best thing to do that we learned in HCOPS with its Hapeville Citizens on Patrol is to call the police, because you never know what that person is up to. He could be looking to maybe case a place, looking at different things, and the police need a reason to question someone. So we, of course, as citizens on patrol, should be aware of our surroundings, of people we don't know, and call them.
Ms. Ruth Barr?
Well, I think that will also be helpful if we retain our police officers because they will learn who does belong in the neighborhood and who does not. But if I see someone that's out of place in my neighborhood and I have suspicions about them, I call the police.
Ms. Lucy Dolan?
One of the most important things that I learned from attending the Citizens Police Academy was to call the police. So often we as children maybe learned from our parents, the police are busy. They're dealing with serious crimes. Don't bother them. Wrong. If you see something that makes you uncomfortable, trust your gut instincts. Call the police. They're happy to hear from you. If you haven't taken the Citizens Police Academy training, please consider it. It's a very worthwhile thing to do. Thank you.
Ms. Laura Murphy? Many folks in the younger generation want access to rapid transit. With the Clayton County 2014 referendum pushing for bus rapid transit or commuter rail from East Point to Lovejoy. I'm sorry?
Mr. Mack answering that question.
Forgive me.
I'm here.
He was, no, it is. Forgive me.
Loitering. I've gotten to know a lot of police officers here in Hapeville, and I talk to them almost every week about anything or anybody who looks suspicious walking through the city. And they kind of commended me on that, Mr. Mayor. And if
Hold the mic.
I have spoken to many police officers here when it comes to loitering, and I think I have a good relationship with some of the officers here. And if there's any loitering going on here, I agree that we should contact Hapeville PO and talk to them about anybody who looks suspicious or anybody who's look like they just casing their joint. Thank you.
Thank you. And forgive me, in my perfection, I am making a few mistakes. Ms. Laura Murphy, many folks in the younger generation want access to rapid transit. With the Clayton County 2014 referendum pushing for bus rapid transit or commuter rail from East Point to Lovejoy, what are our plans on being at the table for design and placement?
We definitely need to be at the table. If we're not at the table, we don't get a say-so in rapid transit. Doing the research on the MARTA lines, it is determined that you need 6 to 7 acres in order to have a station. We're landlocked. We have very little land left. If we were to have a station to connect East Point and Clayton County and go to Lovejoy, it would have to be maybe in the 16 or 17 acres left that the Jacoby property has. And that may work. I am certainly in favor of having younger people have access.
Ms. Ruth Barr?
Well, we do have bus access to the station in East Point and College Park, which are not very far away. And as Ms. Murphy said, we are landlocked. And the trouble with making a large station for such a small town, that property comes off the tax rolls, and we no longer get any income from it. So it's a 5-minute ride over to the East Point station on a bus, and I've done it many times.
Ms. Lucy Dolan?
I would not like to see a MARTA station in Hapeville, but I do think we should be at the table when all of these decisions are discussed and made. I do see rapid transit bus lines feeding out of Hapeville. I was a bus rider all through my high school years, so I know it's possible to use the bus. I was just thinking the other day, too, I'd love to see, as part of this MARTA effort, perhaps a bus that goes directly from Hapeville, directly downtown. It would help a lot of students attending college and help connect with further points north. But then again, we have access through the airport, East Point, College Park. We're okay, I think. Thank you.
And Mr. Rod Mack?
Well, thank you. I'm a big proponent of public transportation. I would like to see MARTA come through here. Right now, we have 3 buses that come through here. We have the 95, we have the 172 that go up and down Central. We have the 95 that goes up and down Dogwood and Metropolitan. Young people want to have access to jobs. They want to have access to being a part of this community. And if one person cannot afford a car to move anywhere, I think that I'm all in favor of public transportation coming through Hapeville. And yes, I would like to look forward to a Hapeville station here in Hapeville.
Mr. Alan Hallman?
Well, as was mentioned, the property is a serious issue as far as having a MARTA station. Transportation, especially the rapid transit, has been an issue for a number of years. The commuter rail is a very complicated machine, and we have been at the table. Hapeville's had representation at the table for years. We have, through our South Fulton Municipal Association, we have a representative of South Fulton County that serves on the ARC board, Mayor Clark Bodie from Palmetto, and we work hand in hand with ARC on a regional level, because when it comes to transportation, it needs to be a holistic look at transportation. What's gotten us bogged down is the traffic situation in general in Atlanta is a mess, and we've got to look at more walkable, friendly communities where people don't need to commute so far, and I think we shine with our location in Hapeville because of that.
Ms. Ruth Barr, how much time does the mayor's job require? 20 hours, 40 hours? Do you have the time this job requires? Yes.
the mayor's job, but I assume it takes a lot of time. Probably both positions take a fair amount of time. One advantage I have in the alderman position is I am self-employed. I am very busy 3 months of the year, but I schedule my appointments any way I want to schedule my appointments. The advantage of being the boss, and I close my office at about 3 o'clock on Tuesdays already, and I can schedule around anything, activity that needs to be scheduled around.
Ms. Lucy Dolan?
I'm running for alderman. I'm retired, and I have a lot of time. So I'm free. I have an open schedule. I suspect that initially this could take upwards of 20 to 40 hours a week just to get started with some of the things I'd like to do. And I'm ready for it.
Mr. Rod Mack?
Yes, I'm retired. I used to own a FedEx logistic company, and since I'm retired, I do have the time to be a member of the council. The council is a part-time position. The mayor's office is a part-time position. So but they all do full-time work, and I believe that being retired and having the time to sit in on different meetings and planning for our city's future is a good thing.
Mr. Allen Hallman?
Well, if you went to every meeting and every dinner and every luncheon and every breakfast and every training class that you were invited to, it would take 80 to 100 hours a week to do the mayor's job. However, I am self-employed. I have a lot of flexibility, and you don't necessarily have to be at City Hall to do your job. I'm on the phone hours some days. I'm on the get emails. Most people have my cell phone number. So I get city emails, I get at home, I get them on my city email account. So I'm always accessible, and I put the amount of time in it that it takes. With the city manager structure that we have, the daily operation of the city falls on the shoulders of the city manager to be guided by mayor and council. And I believe that system works. And they don't pay us enough to make this a full-time job. You put the time into it that you have to put, but I'm amazed that we want to pay our corporate leaders hundreds of thousands, but we want to pay our elected officials $700 a month for the mayor's job and $600 for the council seats. So you donate, you give the time that you must give to get the job done.
Ms. Laura Murphy?
I'm not in it for the money. I also am self-employed. I own a little antique shop right now that's on Main Street, and I have someone lined up, ready, willing, and able to take it over as soon as I become mayor.
Ms. Lucy Dolan, the current expenses, not including bond payments, have been more than revenue for many years, and now we have no savings. Will you stop this?
I'll certainly do my best to stop it. It's a trend everywhere. And as I said earlier, we're going to have a forensic audit, and then we're going to have to start looking for money. And from what I can tell, there's money out there. It just depends on how efficiently we can collect it and how quickly we can. I don't think it's an insurmountable problem.
Mr. Robert Mack?
Okay. I propose that Hapeville will review all fees and charges annually in order to keep pace with the cost of providing services to the city of Hapeville.
Mr. Allen Hallman?
One of the biggest problems we're having right now, first of all, we do have savings. We have a $500,000 fund balance, so we're not at dead zero. One of the biggest problems we have right now is a revenue problem. In 2008, the average residential tax bill was $782.39. In 2014, the average residential tax bill was $329.09. Folks, we have a revenue problem, and the revenue problem is a direct result of the decline of our property values that came from the Great Recession, and we have weathered that storm. We weathered that storm because we had reserves, and we are on the path to turning that around. Our budget this year shows a small surplus. It's looking like the numbers for last year have come in at about break even, so the worm has turned. We are identifying new sources of revenue, working on that full time as we speak.
Ms. Laura Murphy?
When I got off council in 2005, immediately thereafter in 2006, I got my real estate license. It was an eye-opener. It was right before the housing bubble. And I had told the administration at that time that we were going to be in big trouble, that Fulton County had taken our taxes and just started to slice and dice them. So these issues were known by the administration, and they failed to work with Fulton County to make sure that we didn't go directly down the tubes.
Ms. Ruth Barr?
Well, the easy answer is yes, I will change that. One of the problems that we have with our digest, our residential digest, is not just Fulton County not reevaluating. The state of Georgia actually passed a law that stated when you buy a piece of property, the first year's taxes have to be based on the amount you paid for that property. And a lot of property chased hands at very reduced rates in 8, 9, and 10, because I actually bought some for $20,000, a house that was in very good condition. So that's where comes a lot of it. And the Fulton County's failure has been to start reevaluating this stuff and getting it back up to where it belongs.
Mr. Rod Mack? The City of Atlanta has provided monetary compensation for affected Hapeville citizens in the designated decibel level in the past. Will this noise or decibel level be revisited in the near future to assure compliance? If not, why?
Well, on the neighborhood neighbor that we have here, I'm always reading about issues with noise and those type of things. And I would like for, citizens in their own community to keep us informed on any type of noise, and if the mayor and council can get together about any kind of ordinance to resolve these issues when it comes to noise ordinances or abatement, I would welcome that idea.
Mr. Alan Hallman?
Thank you. Yes, the noise abatement for the airport operates from the Federal Aviation Administration. They did come through several years back and, quote-unquote, buy your air rights. But they also are constantly monitoring. They have noise level monitors around just different locations. There's one on Gordon Circle, I believe. And because they recently came into St. John's School and did a lot of work there, putting in new windows and new air conditioning systems, and made a fairly substantial investment in St. John's Church and School because of the noise from the airport. So it's really beyond the city's control because it falls under the Federal Aviation Administration. But we have a good relationship with the airport, believe it or not. It's been strained some over the years. But working with the airport and being at the table when they had their comprehensive plan update, I feel like they know we're there and they know we're continuing to work together with them to help address these issues.
Ms. Laura Murphy?
Now, things did change considerably when they did the fifth runway. The flight paths are totally different, so there are times when the noise is just a little bit louder than it used to be. But the planes have gotten quieter, and they do try to keep on the flight path. The one that drives me crazy is the go-arounds, and it sounds like they're coming right over your head. So, I mean, we can call if it persists, and they are supposed to take care of it.
Ms. Ruth Barr?
Yes, they stopped on North Avenue when they did the original noise abatement because the decibel level above there was not enough to it. I know some years ago they reinvestigated that and came with the same conclusion. Since the fifth runway has opened and we have more efficient planes and stuff, I've noticed that we don't have as much noise as we used to. And as Mayor Hallman said, this is in the hands of the FAA. If we see that we're getting more noise in town, we can talk to them, ask them to come out and do a study, but they make those decisions.
Ms. Lucy Dolan?
Thank you. I really don't have anything to add to what's been said, except that on a different level of noise, I'm particularly sensitive to it. And while I think that the airport situation is one that most people are certainly aware of, I would like people to think about some of the noise that we generate ourselves that might not be necessary. We're just in a noisy place. We've got the trains. There's all kinds of noise around us, and we want to preserve the hearing of our children and of all of our citizens in general. So that's it.
Mr. Alan Hallman, how do you plan to attract quality retail to the city, given the lack of density in our city, which can be a turnoff for many retailers?
Understandable. Well, as was mentioned earlier, the Asbury Park area is an area that had been previously identified and still remains the best area for density type development, and we must have density. Having commercial development, including retail, restaurants, and other things in that area is critical for our future. As I mentioned earlier in my opening remarks, I think taking advantage of Portia's presence here and other strides that we've made make Hapeville a more attractive place. And there are some projects in the works that I'm not at liberty to talk about tonight, but I can assure you there are some exciting things around the corner.
Ms. Laura Murphy?
I think we need to go outside of Hapeville and go after the retailers that we want. There's a lot of retailers out there, and people don't even know Hapeville's here. We need to start doing some real marketing campaigns to let people know what a wonderful city that we live in. I was looking at some of the different articles in Creative Loafing and all these different things, and we're not mentioned anywhere. Our fall festival wasn't mentioned. I think people don't even know we exist. I think once they find us, they will be glad to come here.
Ms. Ruth Barr?
I think we need to concentrate on the type of retail and so forth that would be attractive to the people that work in this area. We have 60,000 people that work in the Hapeville area every day. And if we concentrate on places that they would go to, these businesses would be successful. The other side of that is also we have to frequent the places that are located in Hapeville. I make a point to go to eat out at restaurants in Hapeville, and I try to eat at most of them, the smaller ones, at least once a week, because we have to show the support, because if somebody comes in town and sees a restaurant that's closed, they're thinking, well, I don't want to go there. They closed. We need to support them, and especially we need to support them at night if we want to get some nightlife.
Ms. Lucy Dolan?
I agree with supporting the local businesses that we have and looking for businesses to come here that will be attractive to some of the people that work in these large corporations that come into the city during the daytime. But I also want to mention that if we are to attract businesses, we have to really take a good look at how our city looks. And that's more than just what our downtown area looks like. We have to make sure that the rest of the city is spruced up, because these impressions matter.
Mr. Rod Mack?
Yes, the demographics of Hapeville is big. We have a lot of people here. We have people here that enjoy a lot of different things, and the businesses that we do have here are nice and quaint and small, and we can get to talk to each other. And but I would not welcome huge big box corporations that come to our city at all. And I like to keep the small time atmosphere that we already have.
Ms. Laura Murphy, what is your plan to increase property values and therefore increase our budget revenue?
Well, the good thing, if you go on Zillow, our property values are increasing. I think curb appeal is one of the biggest things, that if we can work with our neighborhood associations to help people to make their properties look better, I kind of call it living on the edge. I would love to see every yard edged. I think it makes a huge difference. I think if we can start with educating people on curb appeal makes all the difference in the world on a house value. And if a neighbor has his house a little dilapidated, let's find out if we can help him. Let's see if we can help him improve the curb appeal of his property so that ours would be increased.
Ms. Ruth Barr?
Well, the only way you can increase our residential digest is get Fulton County to reevaluate our properties accordingly. And one of the ways you've got to start is when somebody goes to buy a house in Hapeville and they go and get comparables for the bank, they have a hard time finding those. They'll go into neighborhoods that are not truly comparable, and they won't rate a house for as high as it should be. So we've got to make it so that there's some comparables in town. We've got to make people aware of where they are, and so that the values of these houses can be raised. As those go up, the purchase prices of the houses will go up. That will automatically bring our digest up.
Ms. Lucy Dolan?
Thank you. I agree with everything that Ruth said, and I want to add that we have some citizens here that have contributed their time and energy to a wonderful group called Paint the Town. And Paint the Town has, I think, had a tremendous impact on the city. It's got people aware of the idea that we need curb appeal, that we need to paint and fix up, and we may need to help people who can't do it themselves. We're all in it together. If we want our appraisals to go up, we have to make sure that everybody in the neighborhood is spiffed up. And that is something that we may have to look at as a community. Updating our codes with Fulton County, I've learned from the Planning and Zoning Commission work that I've done, is extremely important. We can't just make code changes here in Hapeville and think they've been processed, because they've not.
Mr. Rod Mack.
Well, you never know about anybody's income situations. You don't know who lives in the house. You don't know their capabilities. You don't know how they feel. And I agree that a lot of people need help with sprucing up their properties and making their properties come up to code. And like Laura said, you know, curb appeal is very important. But if people don't have the resources, or it might be a senior, or it might be somebody who needs a lot of help, I think we should be a loving community and reach out to people who need that type of help to help bring their property up to code.
Mr. Alan Hallman.
Well, one of the issues with property values does directly stem from Fulton County and the Fulton County Tax Assessor's Office. I met a few months back with the new county manager, and he said, "What's your biggest issue with Fulton County?" And I immediately told him, the Tax Assessor's Office. I said, "Everything's bogged down there. We keep taking things to them." And I don't understand it, because the school board benefits, the Fulton County benefits, and the city benefits. I don't understand why they won't fix at least the glaring errors that we have. So I got a commitment from the new county manager, who will be doing a complete and total operation survey of Fulton County, and he advised me that other elected officials shared that same concern, and he would be focusing on the Tax Assessor's Office as part of his review.
What steps will you take to make sure the city is utilizing incoming funds most effectively and efficiently? Ms. Ruth Barr.
Well, a complete review of what we do. 75% of a city's budget tends to be payroll, because the city is a service organization. And I think as long as you make sure your employees are well compensated and they're doing their job, most of our money is going where it's supposed to be. Everything else that we do, whoever does in economic development or everything, should have benchmarks, should have goals they look for. We should have some way to rate that they are doing their job according to what we want to have done, that is actually improving the health and benefit of the city.
Ms. Lucy Dolan.
What Ruth said is true. A large proportion of our budget, a large portion of our budget goes for salaries. And as far as the rest, I don't think there's going to be a difficulty getting all of that aligned after we have a forensic audit, and then we start talking to people in each individual city organization, and having good goals and having achievement records to aspire to. I think will be good. I don't really think there's any feeling that anything monstrously wrong is at foot here.
Mr. Rod Mack.
I think I said this earlier, and I propose to establish a fund balance reserve for the general fund to pay for expenditures caused by unforeseen emergencies, to cover shortfalls caused by revenue declines, and to eliminate any short-term borrowing for cash flow purposes. This reserve will be maintained at an amount that represents approximately X number of dollars, or the 2 months of regular general fund expenditures, or whichever is greater.
Mr. Alan Hallman.
The word forensic audit's been thrown around several times tonight. The one thing that we all need to understand is every year the city goes through an audit, and it's a very detailed audit. The audit is presented to council with recommendations. It highlights the shortcomings, it highlights the weaknesses, and it highlights our strengths. It also oftentimes highlights policies and procedures that we need to adopt to better handle money, to better handle the budgeting process, et cetera. So to imply that our funds aren't being audited is kind of a misconception. Again, we have state requirements for reporting of our audits, and the finances for the city are poured through on a regular basis.
Ms. Laura Murphy.
think we need to delve a little bit deeper. I really think we need to get into the audit and see exactly how our expenditures are. Excuse me. I think that if we look closely and we can get to a zero-based budget, we can start fresh every year, and then we know what our fixed incomes are, what our fixed costs are, all the things, and then we go from there. Every year it should start at zero and work our way up.
Ms. Lucy Dolan, what steps will you take to make sure the city is utilizing incoming funds most efficiently and effectively? That was the last question? Okay. Well, I guess we need some more questions, or I'm getting very tired. That's just an inside joke. More questions, please? Is everyone doing okay out there? Is everyone doing okay out there? Okay. Okay, more water for the candidates, please. They say that anyone can do this job. Anyone want to do this job? Sometimes it gets a little bit interesting at the podium. You're trying to remember this candidate, this question. So sometimes it gets a little twisted up here, but don't worry, I'm not insane. I'm good. I'm good. I had Honey Nut Cheerios this morning. I'm good. I'm serious. I'm good. So let's give the gentleman some water. Let's get some water for you. It's been a long night when you're asking the same question over and over, but I don't mind being here. I enjoy it. So, Mr. Rod Mack, how do you plan to modernize code?
The coding system that we already have in place here is one that I've looked at the second year that I came to Hapeville. And I think that our coding system that the mayor and council has already put together, I feel like it's working. You know, we could tweak it a little bit and find out other codes that we can come up with to make sure that we are abiding by all of those. But this mayor and council has done a great job with our coding system.
Mr. Alan Hallman?
Repeat that question.
Yes, how do you plan to modernize code?
Code enforcement, or
Yeah, I would imagine that the person who wrote this,
how would
code
you take that
enforcement.
question? The
How do you
municipal
plan-
code itself?
Yes.
Okay. We are currently in the process of modernizing one aspect of our code through our design review process. We realized that our design standards needed to be modernized because they hadn't been revisited in a number of years. And we take steps all along the way because certain things that come up ring bells, make bells go off, and cause us to take a second look at all of our codes. But again, we're talking about being short on funds, and rewriting code costs money because you have to pay planners, you have to pay lawyers, and you have to codify the code with MuniCode. It's a lot more complicated than it sounds on the surface. But we're addressing the items one at a time. As we come up with specific issues that get our attention, we deal with them there. But my long-term goal is to completely and totally revamp the entire code for the city.
Ms. Laura Murphy?
I believe we have some good codes on the books. I believe that a lot of people don't know what the codes are that work for the city. I believe we need training on our codes. The people that enforce the code need to know what the code is. It's disheartening sometimes when we have all these laws on the book and then they're not followed. It doesn't matter what code you have. If it's not followed, it doesn't mean anything. But if we want to look at a different code or a modern code, I'd say let's look at some of the newer cities, the modern cities that have just come into play, and let's look and see what they've done. They've done all the work. Maybe we could just piggyback off them.
Ms. Ruth Barr?
As Mr. Hallman said, they're now rewriting a lot of the design codes and architectural designs, things that will be acceptable and not acceptable. One thing that was pointed out last week when we went to the meeting is that the building Porsche built over there that is so lovely would not be able to be built in Hapeville because it didn't abide by our codes. And it's a gorgeous building. Every time something comes up, they look at what should be there and what we need to have in our laws to make it easier to do and still be pleasing. As Ms. Murphy said, I think the key is looking at other neighborhoods that have gone through what we're going through and what they have in their code and what does work and what didn't work for them.
Ms. Lucy Dolan?
You. I do think that code enforcement is a problem, and I agree with what Laura said, that a lot of people, including city employees, don't know what the code is. And I believe that that is a very serious problem, because if someone calls up and they ask a question and they don't get the correct answer, problems can ensue. And that doesn't help the city. So we need our codes updated regularly. We are, as has been stated, looking at them when it's brought to our attention that they need updating. What we don't want is spot zoning. We want to make sure that our codes are modern, efficient, and effective for our community, and then we want to enforce them to protect all of us.
Mr. Rod Mack? Mr. Alan Hallman? How do you foresee changes in the education system?
Changes in the education system, that's always been a hot topic in Hapeville since we lost our high school in the mid-'80s. We've been as part of a team working with a group from Atlanta Metropolitan College to try to create a first-rate charter high school. Unfortunately, we ran into a lot of obstacles from Fulton County, who on one face wants to be our friend, but on the other face doesn't support us in the background. We ran up against a brick wall on timing for this year's submission. However, we have an upcoming meeting with Atlanta Metropolitan College to sit back down with them and discuss where we stand and to talk about our next moves. And I can assure you it is my #1 goal to have a charter high school, a high-quality charter high school in the city of Hapeville. It's key to our survival.
Laura Murphy?
Ultimately, we would love to have great schools in Hapeville. That would tie into the quality of life. I know right now that we have a fabulous educator and principal over at Hapeville Elementary, Miss Jennifer Couch. So we're lucky there. And if you're involved and have children, please get involved with the school and be part of the PTA. We do have a charter middle school here, and we have wonderful St. John's. So we have some school, but we don't have a high school. Ultimately, it'd be wonderful to have the old elementary school back as a high school, because that's where the football field is. Thank you.
Ms. Ruth Barr?
I think one of the worst things they ever did to neighborhoods was take away the neighborhood schools. I went to Hapeville High. Like I said, if I did something wrong, my mother got a call from my teacher because she knew her number, and my mother would listen. We need to get back to those neighborhood schools because that's when the kids know you care for them. I'm on board. I've been working hard and doing all I can to support the charter school that they're trying to get, and it will be an excellent idea. We also have one that's called Hapeville Charter High School, but it's actually in College Park that's been working. So education, I raised 2 children here, and I did not send them to the local schools because South Fulton County has not done a good job of keeping these schools up to par. And the organization I belong to works very hard in helping the kids in transition over here and does everything we can to help bring up the education in the public schools. And I think a public charter school would be another step in the right direction.
Ms. Lisa Dolan?
I believe that a charter high school would be an absolute boon for the city. And I really believe that good schools are very, very much a part of things that people look for when they choose a residential community to live in. So I know that we have dedicated citizens here that are working on it. I think that we're moving in a direction where it's going to happen. We've been delayed another year, but they're still working on it, and I think we should support it 100%. Thank you.
Mr. Rod Mack?
Thank you. As a graduate of Fulton High School in 1971, which is gone now, it's a middle school. As a graduate of Morehouse College in 1979, I would welcome a high school, a charter school, anything we can have in Hapeville so our children can have a first-rate education.
Ms. Laura Murphy? I'm a new business in the Hapeville community. As our newly elected mayor or alderman, how will you boost the tourism in this community for new businesses to gain new business?
What was the first?
The first part was, I am a new business in the Hapeville community. As our newly elected mayor or alderman, how will you boost the tourism in this community for new businesses to gain new business?
I think we're losing we're not looking at social media properly. I think we're losing a lot of customers by not getting into the new millennium. It's about 15 years late. But we could get a couple Georgia Tech geeks to help us out, and we could advertise through social media. It's amazing what these kids do. They're all tweeting and talking and doing, and they know where to go and what to do and how to do it. I say we get some young people in here to help us with social media and advertising, and we'll have more business than we know what to do with.
Ms. Ruth Barr?
I agree. The key is making people aware that we are here and what we have to offer, and I don't think the city has done a good enough job of that. It's a learning curve always, because sometimes it's a hit and miss. Like at my business, I'll try something and find out I didn't get anything from it. So you try what's right. And social media seems to be the thing right now that is right. That's what everybody looks at. I have a Facebook page, which I look at almost once a month, whether I have to or not. Most people look at theirs much more often, I have found. So that's where you need to go. You need to get that, and you need to encourage businesses in town that will satisfy the needs of the people in this area. You just don't need to go out and find, oh, this will be a good business. Make sure it's something that will be popular for the people that work in this area and live in this area.
Ms. Lucy Dolan?
Thank you. I believe the city needs to do a lot more to improve its own website, hapeville.org. I go there a lot, and to be honest with you, I'm not impressed. It needs to be updated, it needs to be monitored, and I know this takes time, it takes talent, and of course it takes money, but I do think that's where we need to put our money. Social media is where it's at. Everybody's wired. People have cell phones. They want to find out where to go eat, where to go buy a card, and if you're not part of that, you're not in business.
Mr. Rod Mack?
Right now we have Senior Life, The Guide, Creative Loafing, and the South Fulton Neighbor. I think we need to increase our efforts to put the word out to new business owners that if you come to Hapeville, we will make sure that you thrive and move ahead in our city, and we'll give you all the resources to do that.
Mr. Alan Hallman?
Well, of course, social media is a key ingredient. There's no doubt about that. Hapeville's website continues to improve. It's using blast services right now to blast information out to social media. And I would love to be able to, and the council has had some discussion about hiring a person who would be specifically responsible for social media. But once again, we're talking about budget concerns and budget constraints, and that's an item that we've just put on ice for the moment. But again, I think with the staff we've got, we're doing a pretty good job. The most important thing I believe we can do is to bring more businesses in here to take advantage of our location, again, through folks like Portia, our arts initiatives, because rooftops and people will make businesses succeed.
Ms. Ruth Barr? Can you please address your support or opposition to the Castle area reopening as a restaurant/nightclub?
I haven't read any of the paperwork or know anything of what has been applied for. When it was open briefly as a restaurant, I ate in it. My food was very good. I assume any business that goes through the process and abides by the city code should get the right to open, and that's what code enforcement and our codes are for.
Ms. Lucy Dolan?
Could you please repeat that question?
Yes. Can you please address your support or opposition to the Castle area reopening as a restaurant/nightclub? Yes.
I believe that anyone who wants to start a business in this city who will abide by the codes that are in place and the laws that are in place has a right to do business. It remains to be seen. I believe the Castle is reapplying for some things. I know they came recently to the Planning and Zoning Commission with some new ideas for structure. So I believe there's ongoing work and initiatives coming from the owner or owners, and we'll just have to wait and see how it goes.
Mr. Rod Mack?
2 weeks ago, I went down the street and I talked to Josh. He gave me a little tour of his restaurant, which is beautiful on the inside. This man is hurting. He's aggravated. He's mad. He's named people in this city, which I don't agree with. I came down to make peace with this guy, And I wanted to let him know that we don't want to be in litigation with him or his legal counsel or anything like that. And I tried to make the peace with this guy, and I just don't understand how, well, I do understand, he's a little angry. And if he will only abide by the ordinances, the laws, and the rules and regulations in this city, I don't see why he does not have the opportunity to operate his business in Hapeville just like anybody else.
Mr. Alan Hallman?
Well, rumor does have it that Mr. Patton is going to be reapplying for an alcohol license, and the first step for that process is for him to go to the Alcohol Review Board. Should that application be denied, it would come to council for a hearing. So with that being said, it would be improper for me to comment on that because we could be the actual next stop should he be denied by the ARB.
Ms. Laura Murphy?
I believe the first business owner of the castle was Steve Bennett, so Josh Patton would not be reapplying. He would be applying for a new license. But we do have laws on the books, and the laws need to be followed. As our law states right now, nightclubs aren't part of that law. We have restaurants with pouring licenses. It's that simple. I mean, if you want to run a restaurant, that's great. We have size limitations of 6,000 square feet, which is about the size of a Carrabba's, and you're more than welcome to have a restaurant. We don't have a problem with anybody that wants to follow the laws.
Ms. Lucy Dolan? The decision was made to position Hapeville as a center for arts. Why?
The decision was made a long time ago, and I'm not really sure of all the reasons for it, but I think that what has been done so far is incredibly impressive, and it's bringing in a lot of new people to the city to take advantage of these arts opportunities, one of which is the movie series that's held at Christ Church. I'm sure you've also seen the new edifice that's gone up in the park that has the beautiful art sign at the top of it. There's going to be ongoing work there. And everybody of every ages loves art. I mean, it's part of our culture. So I'm all for it, and whoever made the decision, I applaud you.
Mr. Rod Mack?
As a lover of the arts, the music symphony, which I go to in Buckhead quite frequently, I would love to see something more done in the area of arts in our city. And people love art. People love music. People love fine dining. They love wine. They love everything like that. So I would love to see something like that in our city and hope that it can continue on a regular basis.
Mr. Alan Hallman?
The arts are part of a quilt that makes the community successful. There's no doubt about that. I've supported the arts in Hapeville both from the standpoint of the city side of things. I've supported it with my own personal money, and I've supported it with my company's money. So I'm a believer in the arts, but again, I think it's part of a greater fabric. I was at the table when we negotiated with the Academy Theater to bring them here, and I think they've been successful in bringing some much-needed nightlife to our downtown area. So I think collectively continue working together to promote and encourage the arts is a very important part of the fabric of Hapeville.
Ms. Laura Murphy?
I am a huge supporter of the arts. I have a theater background and an arts background. I'm on the board with the Academy Theater. I am so proud of their shows. They're first rate. And we have an opening October 2nd, tomorrow. So come see us, Grace and Glory. It's a wonderful show. I think arts and economics is the way to go. We no longer have manufacturing. Manufacturing is not part of our footprint. We have to change. We have a creative class that we need to work with and for.
Ms. Ruth Barr?
I have tremendously enjoyed the theater. I love improv, and they have the battle acts that comes, and they are absolutely wonderful. I went last year earlier when they had Yellow Man, and that was a wonderful play. I don't go to the movies much, but I love live theater. Arts is, if you look at anybody's looking for a city to locate in, a business, one of the things they always evaluate is what are the type of arts do they have. I know we won't compete with Atlanta, but we should have our share of arts here, and I tremendously enjoy going to them.
Mr. Rod Mack, with over 1,069 properties out of 3,000 that are miszoned in the town, what's your plan to fix it?
My number one plan is to remove some of these properties and force some of these owners of some of these properties to bring them up to code. I said earlier, 3 blocks from here, there are families living in squalor. And it broke my heart the other day when I went into this lady's house. I'm out passing out my flyers, I'm out campaigning. And it almost broke my heart. She told me who this guy was. She told me who owned the property. And that's my number one enemy, slumlords in this city of Hapeville. After I was in a meeting with the Planning Commission the other night, looking at a 25-year vision for the city of Hapeville, and it didn't include those kind of people. It didn't include the people who are taken advantage of just because they are poor, they are uneducated, and they don't have the means to do well in this city. Thank you.
Mr. Allen Hallman?
I'm assuming that the miszoned properties that are speaking of, that are being spoken about, have to do with how Fulton County has them zoned in their database and for their property taxes. Property taxes for properties are generated based upon the use of the property, not necessarily the zoning. We did a complete review of our zoning several years ago, modified some of the zoning, and tried to get non-compliant properties outside of those zones. So we've taken that from a sheer zoning standpoint, and we've been working on that for a number of years. But again, if this has to do with how they are recorded at Fulton County Tax Assessor's Office, as I said, they are taxed based upon use, not by zone.
Ms. Laura Murphy?
I think the last updated zoning map was in 2009. It makes for some confusion when someone wants to sell a piece of property that is zoned in Hapeville as an urban village piece of property, and the listing agent has it as C3. Well, a person can buy that property, and he's assuming that C3 is going to allow him to put a gas station up, and that's not going to happen. It creates total confusion, and I think we need to make sure that we talk to the people as soon as they list the property that they shouldn't go to Fulton County, that they need to come to us first about the zoning. There's another property on North Central Avenue that's listed residential, and it's in a commercial zone. So, you know, there's a lot of confusion here. I know people would be really disappointed if they bought something and they couldn't do what they wanted with the property.
Ms. Ruth Barr?
If this is true, and I'm assuming it is, the thing to do is go through the zoning map and update it and produce a completely current zoning map and make sure that the county has a copy of that and that all these codes are corrected.
Ms. Lucy Dolan?
That is a serious problem, and it's been talked about. And what Ruth said, I agree with 100%. Each one of the non-compliant pieces of property needs to be looked at. We need to go down, probably in person, to Fulton County with our redefined codes and make sure that they're inputted into their computers correctly. I don't see any other way to handle it at this point.
Mr. Allen Hallman? There has been an undertaking of studies concerning silent crossings in Hapeville, similar to those implemented successfully and financially feasible in College Park. What will you do to move the silent crossing project to the next level?
Once again, nothing but money. Money fixes most of these problems. Silent crossings run somewhere in the neighborhood of $300,000 to $350,000 a piece. And that's the actual hard cost. That doesn't include the engineering cost. And there are some safety concerns. If you will research silent crossings, if you'll Google silent crossings, there have been some fatalities caused by silent crossings because young people walking around with headphones on, walking out in front of trains. I've read some tragic stories online regarding silent crossings. So we would like to get a study done to investigate the feasibility of silent crossings, but most importantly, finding the funds to pay for them is going to be a challenge in this current economic climate.
Ms. Laura Murphy?
I think as our city grows and Porsche brings other companies here, they will find the funds to have the silent crossings. And it does take a lot of money, but I kind of enjoy Christmas morning when he toots jingle bells. You know, it's part of our whole city. I actually like the train. I just don't like it when my door's open.
Ms. Ruth Barr?
About the only time I don't like it is when they really lay on it for who knows what reason, and they just enjoy that at 3 o'clock in the morning. Because I work a lot of nights during tax season very late, and I have had it go. I've actually called the police before because the whistle was going so long I thought something was wrong. So, but it's like the airport noise. If you've lived here long enough, it just sort of becomes your background, and that's when you notice it. And I would love to have silent crossings, and the key is the money, because you have to have special crossbars and stuff. I've actually had 2 uncles that passed away, were killed by trains. So the safety factor is a very important factor in my opinion.
Ms. Lucy Dolan?
Thank you. The safety factor is a very important part of how I feel about it as well. At this point, that would be something long-term. Safety crossings would be a long-term issue for me, and I do believe, as one of the other potential candidates said, that businesses that move here may actually move that process along faster than we ever will.
Mr. Rod Mack?
I agree with the mayor. Silent crossing costs a lot of money to do, and there are a lot of times when people are trying to beat the clock. They're trying to get across that track as fast as they can. I was watching an article on 60 Minutes the other night where I saw fatality after fatality, where some people think that they can just beat the clock and try to make it across those tracks. And that kind of study will cost a lot of money, a lot of time, and this next mayor and council will definitely look at that issue.
Ms. Laura Murphy, how will you work towards making Hapeville a family-friendly environment?
I'd like to have a dog park. I think that families nowadays need recreation, and we have great recreation with our ball fields and our rec center, but there's other things other than those recreations. A skate park would be wonderful for these kids. There's so many skateboarders around here. I think that we need to really seriously look into possibly having a skate park for the teenagers. I would love to have a dog park for the people that have dogs. It's just a wonderful thing to have where people can meet. We have facilities and things that we can use, and I think we should do that.
Ms. Ruth Barr?
Hapeville has a lot of parks. I spent a lot of my youth running around in the Cofield Park because we lived over near that area for a long time. My kids played ball here. We have a wonderful recreation center that has beautiful summer programs for the kids, that has after-school programs that help children. They help with homework and everything. In my opinion, Hapeville's already a family-friendly. Education is the one area I think we need to improve to encourage more families to come here.
Ms. Lucy Dolan?
I agree with what Ruth said. I think that we have a lot of wonderful parks. The rec center is terrific. I've had so many people tell me, I grew up in the rec. I grew up in the rec too, but a very long time ago when the library was there. And that was my go-to place. But they have expanded the programs. We have a vigorous program there at the Recreation Center. And I do believe Hapeville is a family-friendly place. I would like to see any good ideas that somebody can come up to improve. I personally don't have any, except going forward with the schools. I think schools are the heart of the community for family-friendly people with children.
Mr. Rod Mack?
Yes, I'm a big movie fan. I can't go to the movies in Hapeville. I can't sit down and watch a good movie here. I would love to see something like that. And this is a very walkable community because I walk all over it. It didn't take me but 3 minutes to get here. So I would like to see more ideas that are designed around being a walkable community and being able to enjoy each other here like we're doing right now. And I would like to see more of that.
Mr. Alan Hallman?
Well, I don't think we're a family-unfriendly community as we are. However, I will piggyback on the education comment. The problem we have is young people get get their families started, and then about the time they're getting ready to get towards the end of elementary school, they start looking for another place to live because they're looking for a better high school option than we can offer. So I go back to what I said earlier about the charter high school. I think it's critically important because keeping families here will improve on that family-friendly environment. You can't get your kids 9, 10 years, 11 years old and then pick them up and move them out and maintain that close-knit community that Hapeville was for so many years back when Ruth and I grew up here. And Lucy, that's what kept us here because our families didn't have to move away.
Ms. Ruth Barr, what will you do to improve the housing values?
I think we've already sort of answered that question, so
I know. Some of the questions here
Yeah.
are sort of redundant.
Can we skip to the next one, maybe?
Okay, let's skip to the next one. And some of them are very lengthy. Okay, so we have 3 more hours. Okay. Some of them are very lengthy. So, Ms. Ruth, tell me about your plans to finally sell some of the 14 properties that economic development currently owns and how you plan to cut spending in that department, which has seen increases every year. Also, would you be open to a full audit of the city and all of its departments? A mouthful.
Mouthful. Well, the city gets a full audit every year of all their departments. I think they do a very good job of taking care of the money. There are every year there's some suggestions that the audit firms make, and these are implemented if possible. But what you have to remember, we're also a small city, so some things become cost prohibitive. On the properties, I think the key is to figure out what can go there and start marketing them. Let's get some signs on those properties. Let's let people know they are available. If I want to buy something, I'll go right around the neighborhood I'm looking at, and I guarantee you other people do the same thing for businesses or for whatever. Just like the office I'm in right now. I just happened across it, and the only reason I got it was somebody else's business fell through and didn't get to get it. So you just never know what you'll find. But we've got to get some signs up there. We've got to get some values, and we've got to know what we want to put on those properties.
Ms. Lucy Dolan?
I think that's what Ruth just said makes sense to me. We need signage. We need to advertise for sale whatever we have for sale. And I also know that the city has been moving forward with developmental plans. I feel really good about what they're doing, and some of the plans I've just recently heard about are very exciting. So I think the Development Authority is a plus, and I think just putting some signage up would be a next step.
Mr. Rod Mack?
When it comes to auditing some of these issues, I propose that Hapeville issue a request for proposal to independent auditors to provide an audit for the city's operations and look into this issue as a very vital issue to the citizens of Hapeville.
Mr. Alan Hallman?
On the audit, as I mentioned earlier, the city is audited in great detail every year. On the Development Authority properties, the Development Authority is definitely land rich and cash poor. We bought a lot of properties through the Development Authority, and then the economic downturn came, the housing bubble came. And the Development Authority made a strategic decision at that time to not have a fire sale. The city greatly needs the revenue to help us pay the bond payments that we're having to pay for the Development Authority property. However, taking our time and making sure we have quality development is very important. We have had a meeting last year where we talked about our goals on each particular piece of property, what we'd like to see there. So a lot of that is in process, and I think you're going to see, as the economy continues to turn around, I think we'll begin to see some movement on these properties very soon.
Ms. Laura Murphy?
Economic development is a long, drawn-out process. You just don't immediately just go, oh, here's a guy for a grocery store. That doesn't happen. You have to really work sales to get people to come to a town of our size. So those properties that are sitting for a reason right now. And I'm glad we didn't have a fire sale. But I know that there's a couple properties that I believe are going to move quickly, and they've worked hard on getting the right person to come, and I'm excited to see what happens.
Ms. Lucy Dolan, the city has a part-time city attorney who is paid a very high salary. It would seem we could have a full-time attorney and legal assistant who focuses only on Hapeville. How would you address this?
I like the idea of having a full-time attorney and a staff assistant. I'm concerned about the money that we're paying. I don't know a lot of the details. I just know what I hear going to council meetings and reading the reports that I see. I'm sure I'll find out more when I'm elected, but I like the idea of paying people to work for the city so that they're directly responsible for the city and they have the city's interest in their mind when they sit down to do their work in the morning, and only the city's interest.
Mr. Rod Mack?
I don't have an issue with having an attorney who's qualified, who's well-versed in city government, and one who can represent the city in a way to protect the city's interests and make sure he and his staff, he or she and his staff fight for some of the things that we need in our city.
Mr. Alan Hallman?
There are many aspects to the quality of legal service that a city has to have. I've been on both sides of this. We had a staff attorney and an assistant. We had to bring in outside counsel sometimes when certain issues came up. Sometimes his presence as a city staff member was a conflict because he was an employee of the city. And the firm that we have now is doing a fantastic job. The previous attorney we had, Mr. Coster, I love Mr. Coster like a brother, but he was very, very slow and very unresponsive. Mr. Fincher and his firm have come in. They've done a fantastic job, not only legally representing us, but helping us with our code and modifications that we're doing there, but on the financial aspect, helping us identify new sources of revenue, which have tallied up to almost $200,000 right now.
Ms. Laura Murphy?
I've been on both sides of it. We had an in-house attorney. I thought it worked very well at the time because of all the growth and all the progress that we made. I think we're probably going to be hitting that stride again, and I would be in favor of having an in-house attorney. I think that has the best interest of Hapeville in heart.
Ms. Ruth Barr?
I couldn't disagree more with that. I was on council when we had the full-time attorney. You can never hire one that is going to be knowledgeable in all aspects of city law. So you're always going to have to go out and get somebody to do this or that. And as Mr. Mayor Hallman said, when they have a conflict, then we still have to go out and get someone else. If you get the perfect fit, which odds are not good you're going to do that, the advantage of a firm is they have specialties in all parts of city law. You have employment law, you have liability, you have all kinds of things. And one person usually cannot fill that bill. So I'd absolutely be against hiring a full-time attorney.
Mr. Rod Mack, even though Porsche is a good neighbor and has donated in civic ways to Hapeville, they chose to locate in Atlanta, but didn't want to use their police and fire services. Currently, Hapeville is providing free police and fire services to Porsche, paid for by us through our taxes. We are doing this while operating in a deficit budget. Will you stop this and negotiate with Porsche to at least cover the cost of services provided to them?
That's a good question. I would love to see Porsche come to the table and sit down with us and talk to us about us providing our fire and police services to them. When they came here, they gave a lot of things to some of our elementary school students, like computers and things like that. That's not a real big incentive to come here and say, hey, we want to be across the street from you, but we don't want to do business with you. So I don't like the fact that we would have to just roll over and play dead when it comes to them utilizing our services.
Mr. Alan Hallman?
Thank you. There were two things Porsche asked for when they began looking at locating adjacent to Hapeville. They are on the City of Atlanta side of the Ford site. They asked for us to be first responders, and they asked to rename Henry Ford Porsche, which was understandable. When we started talking about police and fire services, I told them straight up, I said, I cannot give you services that our taxpayers pay for free. And we went back and forth for a while, and then just before the building opened, they said that they were just going to do business with Atlanta, and I said, fine. And then they had a dumpster fire, and then he called back when we were there in 30 seconds, or a minute and a half, and Atlanta was there in about 20 minutes. He changed his tune. So we entered into a 6-month trial period to see what kind of response time, what kind of demand it puts on our staff, and we'll reevaluate compensation after that time.
Ms. Laura Murphy?
I will go with what the mayor just said. We'll see what the 6 months bring, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Ms. Ruth Barr?
Ditto on that also.
Ms. Lucy Dolan?
I thought it was a great story when I heard it. They called Atlanta, and 20 minutes later they showed up. After the fire was out, put out by the Hapeville Fire Department. Wouldn't you want to hire our services? I love it.
Mr. Alan Hallman, although the mayor and city council offices are officially considered to be part-time positions, do you agree that to be as effective as possible, one should anticipate spending full-time hours working on city business if elected? What compromises might one expect otherwise?
I make compromises every day. I spent a lot of time on the phone today. I spend an hour or two a day conducting city business via telephone, sometimes 4, 5, 6 hours, depending upon what meeting I may have to go to. I have a meeting Monday at 5 regarding city matters. I have a dinner meeting Monday at 7 regarding city matters. So I donate the time necessary, and if I was retired and could make it a full time, I certainly would.
Ms. Laura Murphy?
I believe you will spend, if you get the position and elected in, you will spend the time that it takes to run this city effectively. I mean, it is a commitment. The minute that you sit and put your name in the hat and you're ready to be there, you best be putting the time in.
Ms. Ruth Barr?
It is a position that does require a lot of time. I have a feeling if I tried to put 40 hours a week every week into it, I'd be sitting around not doing something for a long time, because that's why we have good city employees, a city manager, and so forth, to do the day-to-day operations. The city council's job is to put the proper people in place and make sure they're doing their job. And that can be done sometimes in 5 hours a week. Sometimes you will be there 20 hours a week, but you just put in what it takes.
Ms. Lucy Dolan?
We have a city manager. We have really wonderful employees, many of whom have worked for a very long number of years here for the city. So these jobs are jobs where guidance is the key ingredient. The actual effort is done by people who are paid to do it. That's not to say that it's not time consuming, and I'm certainly willing to put in the time. I have it. Thank you.
Mr. Rod Mack?
I think the mayor said it quite well a few minutes ago. You know, outside of being a part-time elected official, there are a lot of other duties that go along with that. Visiting, talking, meeting with everyone, and trying to cater to everyone's agenda is really a full-time position, and it takes a lot. Even though we're all sitting here trying to run for a part-time position, it's going to take a lot of full-time effort to operate the City of Hapeville.
Ms. Laura Murphy? Would land banking and land trusting help to alleviate blight in Hapeville? Land trusts and land banking.
I definitely think that could be something that we could look into. There are so many things available to us through the Atlanta Regional Commission that could help us with land banking and getting the different things that we need in the city. I think we need to utilize the things that are available to us, and I would suggest that we do that.
Ms. Ruth Barr?
I'll make it short and sweet. I agree.
Ms. Lucy Dolan,
I agree also.
Mr. Rod Mack,
Also,
Mr. Alan Hallman.
I believe through the blighted property tax that I mentioned earlier, we could use the revenue from that to help us complete the abatement that we need to complete on some of these properties that are in bad shape. And then we could take that land and put it in a land bank and a land trust, and I think that would be a very beneficial tool.
Ms. Ruth Barr, the city has a critical budget shortage. What would you do to rebuild the city finances? We've already answered that. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the little standard operating procedures that we do in the League of Women Voters. We have to make an executive decision. A lot of the questions here are pretty redundant, the ones that are remaining. So, this will end the forum. The questions that I have here are redundant. We've answered this over and over, and I think we've gotten the knowledge that we need to make a well-informed decision about the candidates that we feel will best do their duties in office if elected. Can everyone please give a hand clap? And I will now turn it over to Mr. Terry. Thank you very much. I enjoyed this. I hope that you love me, warts and all. Thank you.